Hello, my good friends. How are you doing? I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's podcast, and today I want us to talk about an article about a Kenyan journalist who claims that the royal tour featured racial undertones and degradations. Mwangi Maina is a Kenyan journalist who has worked for the Africa Report, the Daily Nations, and he currently works for the Standard, which is the Kenyan newspaper. Maina started an epic Twitter thread about what was going on behind the scenes during King Charles and Queen Camilla's 4-day Kenyan tour. Remember, when royals visit a country, even a Commonwealth country, they have to be invited by the government, and the British government has to approve. The planning for tours is made between the palace, Downing Street, the Foreign Office, the other country's government, and the British Embassy/High Commission in that country. Kenya is a free democracy with a free press, and various African journalists ask for and receive press credentials to cover the King and Queen's tour alongside the British royal reporters traveling with the King. Maina wrote that the African journalists were kept separate from the white British journalists, and that the African journalists were treated much differently by the embassy and everyone else. I'm going to read to you what Maina wrote. And the UK in Kenya being tagged in the story is the British High Commission, basically the British Embassy in Kenya. Here is what Maina wrote, and I quote, "Multiple Kenyan-based journalists have raised concerns about racial undertones during the royal family visit. Those who I have spoken to say they were mistreated and felt degraded in their own country. A sovereign country, so to say. I will headline it as segregated press buses, stale sandwiches, and used toothpicks. Behind the scenes of a well-choreographed but tone-deaf royal visit to Kenya." Journalists have complained of being segregated from their British counterparts during poor transportation and not receiving proper meals, despite Kenyan taxpayers partly funding this high-level visit. Organizers at UK in Kenya allegedly separated local journals from Kenya and the UK, drawing criticism and claims of racial discrimination. The controversy began when 3 separate buses were designated for journals, 2 for the royal editors, correspondents, and photographers from the UK, and another one for the Kenyan-based colleagues. I was amongst the accredited to cover the visit. The buses were labeled UK media and local media. This raised eyebrows as it appeared to segregate journalists based on their nationality and color. Maina continues saying how his colleagues expressed displeasure about unequal treatment they received. His colleagues in Nairobi woke up early in the morning and met at Radisson Blu Upper Hill for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. They were arranged under Route 1 and Route 2. No breakfast, water, and lunch for Kenyan-based journalists, and UK in Kenya was distributing packed food. The Britons received preferential treatment during mealtime, despite the Kenyan and UK state teams agreeing on distribution of food equally. The issue is not about food or water, but contempt. In one incident, some Kenyan-based journalists were not provided lunch, only to be offered a few leftover food boxes later. And upon opening, guess what they found? They discovered stale sandwiches, unwrapped cupcake papers, and used toothpicks. This was and is really disgusting. Maina explains how the situation escalated almost a week before the royal visit when senior officials from UK in Kenya created a WhatsApp group for Kenyan-based media. The platform was intended to gather all accredited colleagues to cover the royal tour. However, administrators of the group from UK in Kenya initially enforced restrictions. Only admins can send messages, and that prevented journalists from engaging in any discussion. According to Maina, he says, "My personal opinion, this was outright gagging. This restriction raised concerns about media freedom, and it prompted Maina to challenge the head of communications at UK in media whether the restrictions amounted to a gag order on Kenyan-based media. She told him she did that to streamline communication. 2 or 3 hours later, the settings were changed and all participants were allowed to chat. Maina's colleagues did ask pertinent questions regarding the visit. Nobody sent their personal images or anything unrelated. Someone tried to choke us, he says. It should never have happened." Hours before Charles Windsor arrived at State House, Kenya, an incident involving a senior Kenyan diplomatic figure and a UK in Kenya diplomat hinted at behind-the-scenes friction. The UK diplomat was allegedly involved in a confrontation with a Kenyan envoy over praised photographers. Witnesses claimed that the UK and Kenya diplomat engaged in a physical altercation with the Kenyan envoy, who played part in making the visit a success, seemingly over his placement, which she believed was obstructing coverage of the royal visit. Maina says that this envoy is a non-media figure, and without his input and back-channel diplomacy, this visit wouldn't have happened. While details surrounding the confrontation remain somewhat unclear, this incident that disgusted many journalists and Kenyan state officials suggests that there may have been tensions or disagreements beneath the surface of the carefully orchestrated royal visit to Kenya. Personally, I am so irritated with this level of racism and discrimination even to people in their own country. In my view, I think the orders just came from that family. All they do is using people and controlling them the way they want. I think they ordered the Kenyan journalists to be treated like that because they don't trust them. They can't trust black people. They knew they were going to cover everything, unlike the UK media who are kinda trained because they're used to it now. They do what they are told to and to cover what they're asked to, so as to build this royal mafia a fake profile. And clearly, this was it. And this is the end of our podcast today, guys. Let me know your comments down below and see you in our next podcast.